Okay, good morning, classmates. My name is Karen, for some of you that don't know. I'm going to start my speech off by asking you guys a question, and I want you guys to answer it truthfully. How many of you have consumed alcohol under the age of 21? Okay, that's quite a few of you. But don't worry, you guys aren't the only ones. According to the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse, approximately 7.7 million people reported taking their first sip of alcohol from ages 12 to 20. That's a lot. In 1984, the president at the time, Ronald Reagan, signed the NMDA Act, which is the National Minimum Drinking Age Act, to higher the age requirement to be from 18 to 21. This leads to my topic of legal age drinking, and my claim being that 21 is the most reasonable age to drink. And I have a couple of reasons on why I believe this is good. My first reason being that you are more mature at age 21. So your brain is more developed and you think twice about how much alcohol you consume. Maybe not fully, but you definitely don't think like when you were younger, like say, as opposed to when you're 18 and all you think about is like peer pressure and, you know, drinking and getting people in your car and not really caring about how much alcohol you drink. And this leads to less drunk driving. It hasn't stopped fully, I'm not saying that, but you think twice about what you do. You're considered more of an adult now. And since it hasn't stopped fully, but numbers have declined. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the age of 21 has saved over 31,000 lives from 1975 to 2016. And what does this say? That within the past 41 years, a third of deaths have gone down due to the age limit being higher. Not to mention how expensive car insurance is to the little ones because they decide to make bad choices and that leads to consequences just like anything else in life. My second reason is that it is medically irresponsible. What does this imply? It implies that it can damage your brain. So there's something called binge drinking, and for those of you that don't know what that means, it's abusing alcohol consumption. And this happens mostly towards the younger crowds because, again, like you're in high school or younger than that or whatever it is, and you just think like, you don't really think things through. And this can do serious damage because your brain is not fully developed. You're still young, and we actually have a part in our brains called the frontal lobes, and they're in charge of emotional functioning. And that can cause sadness, anger, anxiety. But the younger someone is, well, this is for all ages, but the younger someone is, you know, the more we can all agree that the younger you are, the more weak-minded you are. So it affects them more because they are weaker in their mind. And eventually, this can lead to more serious issues like depression, and that's hard to get out of. Concluding my speech, 21 is a great age to drink. And plus, why would we want to start bad habits any younger than that? So be safe out there and drink responsibly, and remember, don't offer the little people any drinks because they'll have their time. Their time will come where they could sit at a bar or be at a house and be drinking, but with more responsibility. Thank you guys.
Is she going next door to yell at them?
Yes.
all that background noise.
It does. It won't be clear. It'll just sound rumble, rumble, rumble. But right, Karen, the proposition is pretty clearly identified. The most reasonable age to drink sounds almost like a value claim. Maybe it would be better to say it's the safest age to begin legal drinking. It's the age at which the least amount of damage would be accrued by people. Something along those lines, maybe stated a little bit more like it's a factual dispute. I do think that there's a way to kind of define it that way. The background information is okay. I think you might want to point out that there is a lot of underage drinking that goes on and that this is creating a problem, and tell us what the problem is. I think that would create a little bit more justification for the position. In essence, what you're doing is you are stepping forward and making an argument in favor of the existing policy, and unless the existing policy is under attack, we need to know why it is that we need to defend what we already have. And I think that that's easy to do. You could point out that there are in fact movements to lower the drinking age, that the drinking age gets criticized by a variety of social groups, that people believe that there are more advantageous results if we were to have a different drinking age, and your argument is to kind of push back against those things, but none of that becomes part of the argument. It all just is kind of a generalization about why 21 works. There's not really a preview of what the supporting structure is going to be, so I'm not exactly sure where everything's going to end up in the long run. You do signpost in the body of the speech a couple of major issues. The first one has to do with maturity, but almost all of your information on that point is asserted. There's not any information that suggests that people become more mature or that they reach a peak of maturity or at least a reasonable level of maturity at age 21. It's just, the older you are, the more mature you are. By that standard, people shouldn't start drinking until they're in their 70s when they're really damn old and they can make good decisions. Except, of course, at that point they start losing their minds and then they make bad decisions in the other direction. The one piece of statistical data that you present is the information from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration talking about the number of lives that have been saved since the change in the laws. And I think that that's a good statistic. It is one piece of information, though. There's a lot of more information on this subject that I think would validate the point that you're making here, including the original justification for those laws because of the different age levels at which people were legally allowed to drink in the 1970s, and the data that happened when drinking ages were lowered. I think you can make a stronger argument on that. You're kind of relying on that one piece of information, and there are criticisms of that information. So potentially, what's the old saying? Got all your eggs in one basket there, and I think you want to maybe diversify your information a little bit. And then on the medical irresponsibility of drinking, you talk about binge drinking a little bit. I'm not sure that you've defined it as completely as it could be. And you haven't really talked about how binge drinking is related or more likely because of people's youthfulness, except in a very generic way. There's not really any evidence that suggests that the youth are more weak-minded. I think it's probably true that they're more easily influenced, that they're especially easily influenced by peer pressure. And that would be one of those things where it would be easy to find examples of stories where people get pressed into consuming more alcohol than they should and they get sick, or there's some problem, they even die of alcohol poisoning, or they engage in the dangerous kinds of behaviors. I don't think that that's a hard argument to make. It just is not being made here. All right. Thank you.